I'm a friend of his two sons in particular,
Yes.
President Bush and former Governor Bush. But my father-in-law was a congressman named Jim Collins. He and President Bush were the first two Republicans elected to office in Texas, with H.W. representing the Houston area and my father-in-law the 3rd Congressional District in Dallas. This goes back to 1968. And it was through Congressman Collins that I had the privilege of meeting the president and getting to know that family, which is, to me, the most remarkable political family we have in this country. And they're incredibly decent, classy people. And I'm really proud to see the way the country's treating this man. I mean, he was a decent, good, the perfect definition of a gentleman and the way I would like to see our statesmen be. Yes, he was a one-term president, but I think he was dead honest and straightforward. My favorite image of this whole thing is seeing that dog, Sully, lying by his coffin, because despite what the Slate said about that dog, it's a perfect metaphor for the loyalty and decency that Bush had for this country. So that really moved me almost to tears. These are good people. The entire family are good people. I had the privilege of arguing to get him an honorary degree at Harvard. Joe, you would have thought I was arguing, given the atmosphere up there, for Hitler. I mean, they were so against it. It took me 3 years to get that. When he sat on the stage, this roll of standing ovations over and over again at that commencement ceremony. This was to get him an honorary degree in 2004. It was overwhelming. And I remember looking out in the audience and tears were running down Barbara's face. Yale had mistreated that man terribly. And so our citation when he got the honorary degree was his cap was blue. Remember, he played baseball. He was one of the great baseball players in college.
Couldn't hit, I heard, but great fielder. Would have been
a great cheerleader.
Could have been a major. Could have gone in the major leagues if he could hit.
They said his cap was blue, his house was white, and now his gown is crimson, red, white, and blue. I thought that was a great citation. Anyway, one of the most decent men to ever serve in office. From a great family. Going back to Prescott Bush, I started Brown Brothers here in 1975. Prescott Bush was a senior partner of Brown Brothers. I mean, these people had been around for quite some time, both the father and mother side of the Bush family. Good people, great people.
One of the things I saw that moved me was that both Bob Dole and George H.W. Bush both shouldn't have come home, theoretically. I mean, really, I mean, President Bush lost his entire crew. He was in for 4 hours in shark-infested waters.
Amazing.
And
then he gives his service revolver to the guys that pulled him out of the water.
Right. And Dole left half his body. I mean, he had to salute left-handed because
see him standing.
That's what I mean. The two guys that shouldn't even. And you talk about the greatest generation. I have no, it just does not compute to me landing on an aircraft carrier, not even in combat, but 120 times and 58 missions, and you're 18 years old, and you're headed to Yale, and instead you go to. I mean, they were, I don't know, cut from a different cloth. It makes me feel like I need to go do something today because I feel guilty about it, everything that was left me.
And when you think of, we have giants that are passing right now. This clearly was a giant. Paul Volcker is in his 90s now and ill. Who's going to replace these people in terms of style and dedication and grace? I mean,
what do you think's happened?
What's that?
What do you think's happened?
I don't know. I still think people hew to basic decency. But when you criticize the elite, I mean, here's a guy, Mr. Bush, President Bush, at Andover, then he goes on to Yale, et cetera. In today's world, some would criticize that.
He was criticized. I lived through that. I watched the media, the media treatment of
the very beginning.
I mean, it started with H.W. and then it went to. I mean, before Trump, George W. Bush was
a wimp.
No, H.W. They called a wimp after 120 landings on it. It just shows you that it goes back. The media coverage of people on the right, it goes back to Adlai Stevenson. I think. I mean, it just.
Well,
and I don't
whether
understand
it's the media or not, the point is, it's good for us to celebrate a decent, good man.
Puts it in perspective. Suddenly they'll love him.
And the years of service.
Right.
Absolutely. And again, as Joe said, from being dumped into the Pacific during the war to being president of the United States and everything he did in between. Forget about Republican, Democrat. That's not the issue here. This guy was a leader from the get-go. And I'm happy to see us honor really one of the uniquely wonderful Americans. And
I mean,
to see the world honor him as well.
I think as a whole, the country felt bad that he didn't get a second term and elected his son. I think that had part of it. It's like, what were we thinking? I don't know. It's unfortunate.
I want to come back to one thing, by the way, that we don't talk about very much. And we wouldn't have had NAFTA if it hadn't been for President Bush.
Right.
I mean, my job was to implement it in the second term of Bill Clinton. But if it hadn't been for this president, and Brian Mulroney, who will speak at the service today, and to give him credit, Salinas in Mexico, who was later disgraced, it was George H.W. Bush that put us on the path of trade liberalization. And also, remember, we just wrapped up putting together the WTO, but the Uruguay round, all this stuff was started by the Bush administration. So on the trade front, as a former deputy USTR, I also honor him significantly.